Okay, is there any discussion on invoices?
I got a question on that. Is the one that we got when we were out? Dornfeld, it's $11,000.
The bulk of that, Frank, is for the air handler units at the high school. And we're working to do a charge back on that. We don't know how successful we're going to be.
Do you think it might be possible to start looking into going out to bid for a service contract on this kind of stuff? Because the cost keeps rising and rising, and you said yourself a couple of years ago that...
This has got to do with neglect in this building over a period of time that we're catching up on when there was a change in personnel.
I understand that, but basically, the cost of the have that in the district has gone up, especially at this building.
Sure.
To the point where, you know, you're starting to see $11,000 bills for one pay period. So, you know, is it possible that maybe we should look at what we're spending overall in the years and think about going out to bid on a service contract?
I'll do better than think about it. I'd be happy to put something together and we'll put it out to bid.
I mean, it could very well be they're the only ones that could do it, I don't know, but...
No, I don't either, but I'd be happy to do that.
I think there's a couple of areas where we might start looking into that, like we do I guess by law, we do fire testing here on a regular basis, okay? That's a pretty big cost to be noticing. There's a few things that we do, especially here, that are pretty big items and a lot of money. And if we looked at them, there might be a way that we can go out to bid and get service contracts where it would be less expensive. You know what I mean?
Well, that's not, just remember too though, Frank, a lot of what you're seeing in Dornfeld is not just routine maintenance. This is, when Joe was talking about neglect, there's some serious issues that we're going to have some discussion about.
It wouldn't have anything to do with...
No, this isn't like, these kinds of bills are not maintenance bills. These are air handler systems that are, you know, when you go up there, you find out that, you know, things were disconnected, things were jerry-rigged on them, not to replace or show.
So who's accountable for all that?
Well, that's what Joe was talking about, billbacks and stuff. There's going to be some discussions about when that whole project is all said and done. There's going to be some discussions about why. I mean, there was cases where one of the air handlers wasn't even.
We have 34 air handlers on the book. So far, we've gone through 5, and we found substantial issues, such as John mentioned, such as linkage taken off, motors burnt out.
And the same people that you have them fixing them now, are the same exact people that we've been hiring to fix them before.
Wait a minute.
No, Frank,
That's very unfair.
Frank, you can't make comments like that because you have no clue about that.
No,
that's an unfair comment because my issue is not with Dornfeld on that. Those are not the people that jerry-rigged those units to be like that.
No.
Those are all R&L people that did that stuff, and that's going to be part of what we're going to go back and we're going to talk to them about. It's not Dornfield coming in here and taking linkages off here and forcing open shafts so that...
Dornfeld's been coming in here since I've been here.
Dornfeld's
I'm not saying that Dornfeld did it. Maybe
Dornfeld's been doing business with this town for a lot longer than you've ever been on the board, Frank.
What does that got to do with...
I don't know, you're sitting here telling that you're not asking, you're making comments, you're making statements, you're making allegations. You're making an allegation that the reason we're having the bills we're having is because they're doing shabby work? Give me some documentation that shows me that's the case. Show me documentation where Dornfeld has done shabby work.
May I just interject, gentlemen?
You gotta stop doing that, Frank.
Dornfeld has been doing work in the district, there's no question about that. Not very much here. Anything that was done here was usually beyond what the staff here at the time could handle. District-wise, same scenario. If our people can't handle it, then he was brought in. We're going through a rash of things at this point in time because, as you know, the personnel running this building has changed. And with that change, and all the maintenance requests that have been coming to us, and a good portion of them had to do with with heating issues, and I'm sure you remember yourself being in this room at some point, it'd be too hot or too cold or whatever. We called in the expertise of Dornfeld, who was on the state bid list, and that was one of the reasons that we were able to do that. Otherwise, we wouldn't have to go out to bid on every issue or request bid waivers because of the seriousness of the problems. So he's been correcting those issues on an as-needed basis. So he has not been carte blanche in this building, and I think that's where maybe some confusion.
No, I didn't think it was
District-wide, he has.
I just noted, since I've been on the board, he's been doing a lot of work for us.
Oh, no question.
Okay?
No
And
question.
throughout the years, we've always called on him. Now, I'm not saying...
And recognizably so, because of the fact that he has the most experience with our buildings. You know, he's been a town business for probably 40, 50 years, and a good portion of our buildings are even older than that. And that was something that was always before you and before I and John, et cetera. I mean, these were people that just had knowledge in the building. And prior to us coming on board, I mean, things have changed lately. I mean, you know, our team is a little bit more sophisticated. We could do a little bit more, but also the issues in this building are even beyond normal maintenance. I mean, we came across an air handler the other day that affected one of the wings that from day one, and I'm talking since 1996, they've been trying to regulate the heat, and they couldn't. When Dornfeld and his crew got up on the roof, they found everything was wired backwards. So no matter what imprinting that they were doing into their computer, it was sending messages, and everybody said, well, geez, you know, we got the set points to where the wiring was wrong. So these are things that they're correcting at this point. I don't see these bills continuing, but I do know, and I mentioned earlier, there will be some sort of chargeback to recoup some of this money.
From ORL?
Absolutely, because this is, although some of these things may be out and out breakdown in the equipment itself, it was their neglect in not bringing this to our attention a long time ago. I mean, if there's a piece of linkage missing, that means somebody took it off. I mean, it didn't come off by itself. You can't get on the roof unless you know how to get there. So those type of things, I believe we have a very strong case to get some of this money back. And in fact, today at Cabinet, this was discussed, and Paul and I are going to sit down and try to get all these numbers together and attack that issue in itself, because with any other customer, and that's what we are at this point, and you're hired to do a job, you didn't do it, somebody's got to pay.